podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
So, Paul, did you enjoy that game?
Just to be absolutely clear, look forward to Burnley is definitely not the right word. 100% not. God, it was miserable, wasn't it? I thought we were all right in the first half. Mourinho was quite fulsome of his praise of the team's first half performance, and I was inclined to agree. I thought we looked quite tasty, and there was that big Lukaku chance, which we'll talk about in some detail in a minute. But I thought we looked all right.
Yeah, my problem with this is I wonder whether we as a collective of Manchester United fans over-indexing a little bit because it's been so bloody awful. As soon as we get a half-decent performance, we're like, yeah, we're back, lads. And it wasn't really that. I mean, United had a lot of shots, which is unusual. More than 10 in the first half alone. Only twice has that happened before under Mourinho, both against Leicester for some weird reason. And but a lot of long-range shots and shots from not great positions. So, the XG isn't that high on this game. So it was better, and I think what you take heart from is the players showed a little more fighting spirit than against Brighton. It'd be hard to show less, wouldn't it? And a few tasty tackles went in from Herrera and Fred and others, and Shaw was bombing up and down the left-hand side, perhaps the only positive from the night, really. And they looked like a bit more energy, and United were on top and had created some decent chances, including one big one, which all the pundits said Lukaku had to score. Should he have scored?
Well, watching it, I thought he had scored, and I think it is completely reasonable to hold a balanced view on this, which combines thinking that if you're looking to be the kind of striker who puts up 30 Premier League goals a season, this is exactly the kind of chance you should be biting someone's hand off to get. I think it was on his right foot and he's left-footed, so there's that. And I think what was really interesting is looking at the detailed XG on that shot, which was 0.3, just under 0.3, which means that based on the modelling, which includes the goalkeeper not being in position, a shot from that area is expected to be about a goal every 1 in 3 times. Now, there's no doubt in my mind that does not sit right with the kind of eye test of it. Looking at that chance, to me, that if you were classifying that in the kind of Opta subjective big chances missed category, that looks like a massive chance that you would reasonably expect a top striker to score. But clearly, some data nerd somewhere believes that chance isn't as clear-cut as it looks like. Maybe that's because it's so wide. Maybe that's because Lukaku's had to kind of carve the chance out himself, so his body position's unlikely to be perfect to take the shot.
Yeah, I find it hard to defend him too much. He's a £75 million striker.
Absolutely.
And we probably expect more. Then again, he's used to missing them from much closer range than that, isn't he?
I mean, this is the strange thing about that shot. Is it just, loads of people have been saying this very tiresome line. Oh, in fact, I saw a tweet about it because I did a Twitter search for Mourinho after he'd stormed out the press conference because I wanted to watch the clip, and I saw someone posting a still of that shot and saying, I can't believe Mourinho missed a chance like this. And loads of people are going, see, you can't blame Mourinho for Lukaku missing this shot, and that's obviously correct, but there is a solid argument to say you can blame Mourinho for reducing his own options and making a clearly still not yet properly in the rhythm of the season Romelu Lukaku play the whole game. Anthony Martial not even in the 18. 3 days before the Spanish
league transfer deadline. Is the France window still open? Not really sure,
No
but it seemed like a point, didn't it? Neither was Matteo Darmian, who will be staying at the club, but in the reserves, it looks like. Neither was Eric Bailly, Mourinho's £30 million defensive purchase, which he's now beating up on. So interesting. Funnily enough, the one thing people don't seem to have been pointing out, those same people who are being snarky about Mourinho not being able to coach Lukaku how to score, don't appear to be talking much about Tottenham's transfer strategy this summer.
What do you mean?
Well, they didn't buy anyone. First club to not buy a single player in the transfer window since 2003.
Yes, it's transfer windows were invented. But the thing I don't understand is what that's got to do. What do you mean? So I don't get what you mean.
If Mourinho's to be defended because the club haven't backed him in the transfer window, which is basically the party line from those supporting Mourinho, how come Spurs seem to be on the up and up?
Right, I see what you're saying now. So yeah, I get you.
Yeah, and I don't want to sound like a broken record because we absolutely promised we wouldn't do that. But I don't half think the way that United collapsed in the second half wasn't something to do with the absolute shower of negativity that Mourinho has rained down on this club and his team and his players since the summer.
Yeah, and that is, it's clearly not working. And also, absolutely, the players, like we said last week, against Brighton, I listened back to the show and I thought, God, shut up, Paul, you don't half rattle on a bit. But I went through every single player in the team and their terrible performances against Brighton. Now, I'm not sure I would feel that way about this game. I thought Jones played badly and then got injured. Phil Jones. And Chris Smalling made one good tackle in the first half and was absolutely atrocious.
Yeah, well, let's talk about some of the goals, because we talked about the first half, mixed bag on that.
Fred
generally positive reviews from United supporters.
Fredge was good. And then Fredge played well in that first half.
Fredge. I ended up watching some of it on a Russian stream. Just very good quality.
Yeah.
But Russian commentary, they call him Fredge. But
I always used to like it when because the Russian commentary is very flat and it's like the exact opposite of Arabic commentary. It's very kind of measured. And there was like this moment where it was Runyi, Tunani. And it was really pleasing. Both the calmness and the unnecessary whys in the accent. It was beautiful.
Nice.
So Fred was all right in the first half, basically. That's what I wanted to say. That's the only other point I want to make.
Right. And then second half, you're expecting United to come out for more of the same, and it's 5 minutes in, and Harry Kane scores from the corner, and it all goes downhill from there very, very quickly.
So the marking at that corner looked extremely suspect. It didn't look like Harry Kane had to be too clever to get away from his marker and have a complete free header.
No, he's just jumped above his man. Great header though, by the way.
Yeah.
To float it across De Gea.
He had a lot.
He hasn't dived for it, but I don't think he's saving that at any point.
He had a lot of space though. Do you say he jumped above his man? He had a lot of space. It wasn't like he had his arms on the back of his man, was it?
No, true. And then Lucas Moura for the second. Nice piece of work. Herrera played everyone on side, and Moura steered it in. Maybe that's some of the talent that Fergie wanted to buy a few years back.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And then he scored a brilliant goal for the third with absolutely
scored Smalling.
I
just tire on the pitch. Sorry, Tom. On the pitch. I'm going to try and swear less this week since Tom had to bleep it every 30 seconds or so last week. He should just do Gary Neville and go, that's me done. I'm never going to recover from that because he just got annihilated by Moura there. And it was embarrassing.
At 2-0 down, United put up a bit of a fight, I thought.
They did, but Spurs had two great opportunities. Trippier at the back post. Who was the other one? Kane, was it?
No, it was
the other chance.
Dele Alli, no?
Dele Alli, that's it, Dele Alli, yeah.
Because Dele Alli, I looked at the XG map of the whole game, and Dele Alli had a 0.64 chance. That's the one where De Gea ended up having time to get back into position to make the save, because Ali sort of blew his shot.
Yeah, he should have taken it on his other foot.
But that was a through ball to him from Victor Lindelof, though, which is slightly worrying. I mean,
well, look, I mean, it's a good segue into talking about our centre backs because and Mourinho's right. United needed another centre back. The debate was were the club going to spend 60 million on a centre back who's available for 25 million in 12 months' time, and for a 29-year-old with a patchy injury record, right? So this is the central debate of the summer between executive and Mourinho. Who didn't appear to want to back down on his two choices. When he did back down, he wanted to go for a guy who's even older. So you've got Smalling, who's had a couple of horrendous seasons. Jones, who's been injured on and off for his entire career. There's no reason to think why that's going to change now. Eric Bailly, who, I think most people would have said is our best central defender, but obviously had a horrendous game at Brighton. He doesn't appear to be able to make a mistake without Mourinho punishing him. And Victor Lindelof, who's just never been able to get any confidence at United. He had a decent World Cup, but right now he looks like a pub player, doesn't he? It's awful watching him. He's just he's a mistake waiting to happen, not just once a game, but once a minute.
And, this is the whole Mourinho thing. The whole kind of... I mean, you said in the WhatsApp group that if Lukaku's miss was a central defender mistake, he wouldn't be played for another 12 weeks or whatever it was after. He'd be benched for 3 games minimum after that. And Eric Bailly had a brilliant game on the first game of the season, was one of the best players in that game, and then was absolutely abominably, diabolically terrible. But to kind of leave him out of the squad like that, and especially to...
Well, it's making a point. It's a childish point, isn't it?
To go to 3 at the back as well and play Herrera there, basically. So you're going to play a midfielder in defence and leave both Lindelof and Bailly out of the side when you've paired them.
It's a massive problem. I mean, I don't know whether there's a subtext to this story, right? That there's some other thing about Bailly that Mourinho spotted. But it doesn't feel like it. It feels like that's a punishment beating.
Eric Bailly does seem to enjoy life, which is probably quite difficult for Mourinho to deal with, to be fair. I mean...
Yeah, well, what's he going to do now, right? So his 2 purchases, central defensive purchases, £60 million by investment by the club, he's basically trying to write off, I'm sure Woodward and the bean counters aren't happy about that. And then the 2 others, so Smalling and Jones, he doesn't trust or can't trust for different reasons.
And he's right not to. And they should... honestly, has there been any greater beneficiary of the manager turnover since Ferguson left than Smalling and Jones? Because if one manager had been in charge all that time, there's absolutely no way they'd still be at the club.
Right, but now Jones is injured, so Smalling's definitely going to play in the next game, and one of Lindelof and Bailly, or possibly both, are going to have to play, or is he suggesting that Herrera is going to be a long-term solution at the back? Because I think United are going to ship some goals if that's the case.
Yeah, well...
And look, it's a problem half of his own making, because he's chopped and changed. A few mistakes, and there were bad mistakes against Brighton, bad performances, but that means you're out of the team, so... I'm not sure this is engendering a lot of confidence now. So everyone's going to be a bit jittery.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting it sort of stands in stark contrast to Guardiola and City. And one of the things that's interesting about the documentary which we talked about last week, which I've now finished watching, Ken Early said this on the Second Captain's podcast, but one of the things is that Pep is extremely intense with his players after they make a mistake. He subbed Sterling off for missing an open chance, and he absolutely hammered him afterwards. So it's not like this is a Mourinho-only thing, and it's not like... pointing out mistakes can't get results, but there is some sense that when Guardiola does it, he's kind of working towards knocking them down to build them back up. And one thing that I was thinking about Mourinho is that, Luke Shaw, he does seem to now have sort of genuinely invested in Luke Shaw, but we'll see when there's kind of more competition for places whether that continues. But for now, Shaw seems to be playing well, and I wonder whether it will actually Luke Shaw's now officially allowed to make mistakes because he's endured sufficient punishment beatings.
I don't buy it. I don't buy it for a minute. And we had this kind of fairly cross purposes debate on the pod last week, the week before, about Shaw, and there's multiple ways in which this can go wrong for Shaw, right? The most obvious one is that he makes a mistake and he's dropped immediately. No second chance, he's done, and he won't be in the team for 3 or 4 months after that. But there's also the point that you made that do the old habits, bad habits, come back from Shaw, right? And the entourage gets in his way and he loses focus. It doesn't seem that that's the case at the moment. I think he's put in a few good performances. He's looking trim. He put in a hell of a shift, I thought, against Spurs, up and down that wing on his own with no backup at all. Because it's not like one of the other midfielders was covering that zone. And in fact, for Tottenham's third goal, he's not out of position because he goes to the ball, but there's a huge amount of space behind him.
It's interesting because I was thinking about that game and like who played badly in that game. When in the Brighton game, you could barely pick out a player of any merit, and I thought Marouane Fellaini was almost alone, and maybe Ashley Young a bit. But in this game, I don't think you can really single out too many players as having individual stinkers. The centre-backs, Jones and Smalling, at least, the actual centre-backs who were playing, both played badly. Lindelof played badly when he came on, so that's a big problem. And then maybe Pogba, who I didn't think was particularly... Well, he just was very uninfluential in that game. He played really within himself.
Yeah, I know. I mean, a few floaty Hollywood balls around the place, and he played into his critics' hands by looking a bit casual. The intensity that we saw on the opening day or in the World Cup wasn't quite there. But in the same... And a few other players sort of had that. Fred was all over the place and lots of energy and created a few chances and stuff. I mean, it's hard to blame Herrera too much, but he did play players onside in a really laughably bad way for one of the Spurs goals. But he's an attacking midfielder who's been turned into a number 6 by Mourinho. He's now been turned into a centre back.
Yeah.
And this is not United away at Fulham under Fergie a few years back when Darren Fletcher and Patrice Evra had to play at the back, because it was a massive injury crisis. United have 4 fit central defenders available, and then another one in Timothy Fosu-Mensah, who's having a storming time at Fulham, apparently.
Yeah. It's just, and Axel Tuanzebe on loan at Villa as well. It's a silly, ridiculous mess. I mean, all right, so I'm quite proud of us because we have gone like nearly 20 minutes or definitely more than 15 minutes without even talking about Mourinho's histrionics after the game. And I'm proud of us because I believe we'll be essentially the only football coverage that doesn't start with his histrionics. Because we see you, Mourinho. We know what you're trying to do with your little weaselly point everyone's attention anywhere but at the football. So this stuff...
straight out of the... Well, obviously we've had this debate, perhaps not on the pod, but this is straight out of the Trump playbook. Straight everything, right? From the press conference beforehand where he turns up early, then walks out early, and to that like kind of display in front of the Stretford end after the game, which is... and his various... interviews across media and on M&U TV across the week, this is all distraction stuff. And point to someone else, blame the players, right? So drop them, analogy with blaming the Mexicans here for all the ills. Yeah, I mean, is it absolutely? He's the most Trumpian football manager ever.
Yeah. I mean, fortunately, the field in which Mourinho does it doesn't actually matter. This is why the only reason I'm uncomfortable with the otherwise perfect analogy is that Trump has people's lives in his hands. But
I wouldn't be surprised if we found that in Mourinho's basement he's got a bunch of kids locked up.
The views of Ed don't necessarily represent the views of the Rantcast. I don't know. It feels important.
They probably made in their under five Sunday league, they probably made a couple of defensive errors, didn't play offside properly, and that's their punishment.
So anyway, to get back to what he actually did, he starts off in front of the Stretford end, and there's quite a few people, a lot of people actually, talking about, oh my God, is he saying goodbye at this point in the way he picks up the scarf? And I think that was on the table at the moment, that might have been it was. But as soon as he went and spoke to Jeff Shreves, he's like, oh no, this was part one. And I do think, because I'm about to absolutely hammer Mourinho for what he did in the press conference, and especially the United fans' reaction to it. But I do think that moment in front of the Stretford end, there was an aspect of which that wasn't purely theatre, in that he made the point in the post-match interview, after the Sevilla game, they booed us, which was right because we were terrible, but they actually applauded the players in this game because the effort was there all the way through to the end, blah, 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 blah. And, it's not normal for a team to lose 3-0 at home and the fans to still stick by them. And United fans are absolute suckers for this. We love to pat ourselves on the back. We love the kind of, oh, United are so special. We stick by our manager. Even if our team's losing, we don't boo, even though, unless we're in a mood, in which case we do. It's all nonsense, but it's a big part of the United fan identity, I think. And then he goes in to speak to Jeff Shreves and bigs up the fans and bigs up the players and talks about how that performance looked like a unified performance. And I have to say, that's what I was saying earlier, it didn't look to me like a performance where the manager's got to go right now because he's completely lost the dressing room. No one's playing for him. It's a total shambles. This wasn't that kind of game. I mentioned Norwich at home under Van Gaal last time, and that was that kind of game. No one looked like they cared at all. This wasn't like that. So there was some merit in that. But then Mourinho goes and absolutely ruins the whole any goodwill he might have mustered with this absolute joke of a press conference where he storms out at the end holding up three fingers and says, you know what the score was in this game? And Jamie Jackson replies, 3-0. And he goes, yes, and also this number is the number of Premier Leagues I've won. So show me respect, respect, respect. And all the United fans in the comments on everything I've looked at, without fail, all going, yeah, that's right. Stick it to the fake news liars. Those journalists, those toady journalists. It's like...
Lock him up. Lock him up. Stick Paradise in prison.
Exactly. They are going to stick Jamie Paradise behind bars.
I haven't read his novel yet, so I don't know whether he deserves it or not.
That's a friend of the show, of course. Very kind to me every time I've ever met him. But anyway, the point being, he played to the gallery, and the gallery ate up everything that he said. And then all these United fans talking about how the press don't show Mourinho they don't give me no respect.
Why should he have respect for what he did 15 years ago? So it's coming up on the 10th anniversary of his victory with Inter. Or maybe it's 2010, 8 years ago, his last European Cup. He had the big surprise with Porto before that, and then he had the revolution with Chelsea.
And two of his
oligarch fueled and two of his titles, So, and the last one with Chelsea was an interesting transitionary period in English football, but credit to him for winning the title by some distance. And then he won some titles with... Did he win the title with Real Madrid?
Once, yeah.
Once. He's got the one.
That's almost his most impressive title in a way, because it was Barcelona won it twice in a row, and then he won it the next season, which I think is super impressive.
Yeah, and he did, and scored 100 goals and 100 points and all of that kind of stuff, But honestly, if you take his last two seasons, there's a mixed bag of stuff there, isn't there? If you take his last 5 seasons, it's a mixed bag of stuff there too, So exactly how far do you want to go back for it to not be relevant to the job he's doing today? I mean, anyway, he's got us talking about that now, and it's exactly what he wanted.
No, but No, this is the thing. You can talk about it after you've talked about the game and pointed out all the flaws in the game, and you can talk about it from the perspective of pointing out the nonsense of it. Because I don't think he believes it's nonsense. I think he thinks he's owed more respect. By the way, Arsene Wenger won 3 league titles, and José Mourinho called him a specialist in failure because he hadn't won one for a long time. And that's this is the nature of Mourinho's egotism and narcissism, and the idea that the press are treating José Mourinho unfairly is utterly baffling.
No, I mean he generates all the headlines, right, through his own behaviour. So, and at Manchester United, where there are expectations of excellence, and to challenge for titles at home and abroad, and there has been a significant amount of money spent since Fergie went. Not all of it very good, and there's an awful kind of transfer strategy, or a total lack of transfer strategy at the club. But even with those caveats, there's an expectation level at United that means that the spotlight will be tough on Mourinho, and I think the commentary about his performance as a manager of Manchester United and Manchester United's performance, his team, totally fair. I don't think there's anything unfair in there. I don't think there's any bias there by some media out to get him. Yes, there's a lot of coverage, but it's Manchester United, the self-styled biggest club in the world, where, with 659 million followers, and United won that coverage.
Jamie Jackson, who's the journalist that he had a massive go at, on this very show, said he thought United were favourites to win the league near the beginning of the second Van Gaal season, when it started quite strongly. And that was his perspective. That's not somebody who hates Man United and wants to see them fail. It's just it's ridiculous. I mean, do all the journalists have to support the club? Mourinho said, and this did my fruit. Mourinho said the United fans are clever. They don't read the papers. They don't watch the TV. And I'll tell you what, right? When you read news media, you should definitely consider, especially when it comes to anything political or economic or anything like that, you should definitely consider whose interests are being served when you consume news media. But the other thing that I think that you should be concerned about is when someone's telling you not to trust what you see or read. Think about who is saying that and what their agenda is when they say that. Because,
Oh, quite. I mean, the thing that's different with the news media from the football media is that we can see the game with our own two eyes. We don't get to see policy making live for 90 minutes on a Saturday night or whenever that game was. It's so there is a different level of analysis and depth required to political media, and we don't get it because it's partisan. It's not the same in football. It's not the same at all. This isn't fake news. This isn't, everyone's out to get Mourinho. Sure, people might want to buy into it because, of course, football is partisan, but it's absolute bollocks. It's just not true, and Jose's serving only himself at the moment.
There are times when Piers Morgan ran the Mirror, and he sort of said publicly that he was very anti-United and would run stories in order to wind Ferguson up and things like that, because Piers Morgan's a complete idiot, and is obviously going to serve his personal agenda at any opportunity he gets. But that is the exception to the rule. And, football media and fake news do have a complicated relationship, because almost the entirety of the coverage of the transfer market has fake news kind of at its heart. And there is a problem in football media, but the problem isn't that everyone's out to get United. Just read the papers. And the thing that happens is people ignore all the positive stories and just point at the negative stories and go, oh, there's an agenda. That's not an agenda. It's not an agenda that made loads of back pages right that the players hated Mourinho. And it's not an agenda that had, the day after the transfer window closed, had all those Woodward Mourinho stories. Both of those come from leaks within the camp.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Definitely. Mourinho, in creating this antagonistic dressing room where conflict is at the heart of everything he does and the way he manages players, engenders that, right? The club is extremely leaky from the dressing room and from the very top, because, of course, Woodward loves a leak. Or a briefing. So it's, it's deeply, deeply political at the moment, and it's seeped into the dressing room. I thought Lee Dixon had something interesting to say. Hold yourself. I know that's unusual.
No, he's all right, I think.
He had a piece. He was asked about Mourinho's negativity over the summer and, is this going to make a difference? And this is Lee Dixon, former player, multiple title winner, former England fullback, a reasonably neutral guy when it comes to football analysis. I'd say he's not a he's not a Alan Smith, bitterness at the heart of him, or a Jim Beglin, is he, or a Souness? And he said, absolutely, you can tell something is wrong when the manager gets like that. You can feel it on the training ground, you can feel it in the dressing room, and it translates out onto the pitch. I have no doubt that Mourinho, and he did this deliberately because he thought he could manipulate his boss into getting the transfers he wanted through the media, because Mourinho uses it himself, as does, his brethren in the White House. And he thought he could manipulate Woodward by, taking a certain line, being very negative, trying to put the pressure on, and it's completely backfired on him. And it's actually got to the point where, I said this on Twitter this morning, I think the negativity around him is too much, and the sooner he goes, the better, basically. He hasn't got very long to turn this around. He's got the Burnley game, which Burnley lost 3 on the trot or something, or lost 2 and got a draw. So not in great form, but pretty good at Turf Moor. And then it's the international window. A few chances to turn it around. He's engendered this sense of negativity in the camp. It's beginning to look terminal. I hope I'm proved wrong on that one, but I don't think it's easy to turn this around now from here.
No, I think you called him a dead man walking last week, and I think that was completely fair. And I have to say, in the interest of trying to make the nuance clear, I actually have some sympathy for Mourinho in some aspects, because I think giving Mourinho the job and not giving him the transfers he wants is idiotic.
Makes no sense. Yeah, it makes no sense. Now, look, I might personally agree that 60 million for Alderweireld, a player who's not got the best injury record over the last 2 years, is pushing the limits. It's not my money, so why do I care? I don't. It's not my money. But yeah, if you're going to go, does this set the benchmark for all other transfers? You might think twice about that, right? But should a former banker who's basically our chief commercial officer be calling the shots on football matters? No way. It's ridiculous. So, I have some sympathy for that. But it's a symptom of the absolute chaos that is the structure of Manchester United at the moment.
So, not only did we say we weren't going to repeat ourselves this week, but you did say almost exactly that last week, including making Tom bleep it at almost exactly the same point. So, you just can't get through the Woodward chat without a swear.
It can't, apparently, yeah. So, yes, anyway, to your point, some sympathy with Mourinho, but I think he's made a lot of his own problems.
Yeah, he has. Before we get into Twitter questions, I just want to mention a couple of emails. Got one from Simon Zambelli, who you called out for his particular style when it comes to Twitter questions. A lovely email. But the thing is, he said, I even forgave Paul for being Moyes in from the start. When was I ever Moyes in? That is fake news right there. I think I at one point tried to give him some of the benefit of the doubt because it seemed silly not to. But Moyes in, my God, that's harsh. You loved him. I was distraught when David Moyes got the Manchester United job. Distraught. I thought it was idiotic.
Moyes is number one fan. I think that may be some of my fault for spreading that rumour on Twitter a while back.
And a big thanks to Gaurav Kulkarni, who wrote a very, very, very long email about defending Mourinho. And I'm not going to go through all the points but he picked apart some of the stuff we said. In the end, Gaurav, I didn't agree with almost any of it, but I really enjoyed the fact that you wrote it.
Very good.
So thank you for that email. This is pages long, this email.
Okay, on to Twitter questions. We've got a few.
Let's do them.
Oh man, there's some good ones in here. Ben Hudson, friend of the show, at Benny Hudson on Twitter, says Mourinho would have voted for Trump, wouldn't he? Hashtag fake news. Hashtag lying mainstream media.
Glad it's not just us.
Hashtag what's make United great again? Muga.
I'm glad it's not just us. Yeah, he certainly would.
Patrick O'Brien at Norwood Trash says, would it have been worth giving LVG another season to see what he could have done with the kids alongside new signings, blah, 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 blah? No. No, it wouldn't. We'd have still had the same guff in the transfer market, of course, because that's how we're structured. It's whatever shiny thing an agent throws at us that week.
What if we'd signed? What if we'd signed like the players that he really wanted, which is Kante and Sane? Like, what if we'd signed them? Like that, they've both turned out to be all right at the next level up, haven't they?
Mourinho
Did I say Sane? I meant...
Oh, LVG could have beaten that. Sane would have had passing sideways.
Sorry, Mane, I meant not Sane.
Mane.
I don't know. I was so desperate for something else that I was happy Mourinho got the job just because he wasn't Van Gaal. But in retrospect, I dream of boring Louis Van Gaal matches and a manager who I somehow never quite hated.
At New Pabora says, Liverpool fans believe an age-old mammoth tree is being uprooted and the sage is being resurrected. How can United respond if Liverpool make it to the 19th? I'm surprised we haven't seen Liverpool fans with 19 on it already.
I think City might win the league. I know they they drew against Wolves, but I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but I believe Man City might win the league this season. Just a thought, just an outside chance.
At Mini Iron Greek says, and I really hope this is just a baseball analogy, not something weird. Which one is the pitcher and the catcher between Jose and Duncan Castles?
Yeah. I think there's only one way to interpret that question, Ed, and it's not baseball.
Yeah, maybe. I haven't read Urban Dictionary in a while, so I don't know about things like that.
I mean, honestly, work it out. Come on.
At Badman Imran B says, is Ed Woodward a waste man?
Yes, 101, absolutely 100%, 100%. I don't believe that Eric Bailly is a waste man, but Ed Woodward is definitely a waste man.
Simon Zambelli, the aforementioned Simon Zambelli, says absolutely nothing. He's just posted a picture of an angry bird. James Bonser, J Bonser on Twitter.
Massive friend of the show.
Friend of the show. I know things aren't great right now, but I'm still buzzing to watch this again on Sunday. Man United will never die. Come on, you Reds. That's not a question, James. You tricked me there. I see what you're doing. I'm not ready to get all come on you Reds. I need to trash United for an hour before I predict a 4-0 win at Turf Moor. Come on you Reds.
Oh, gosh.
Miles Bailey says, did last night's loss go away towards explaining Mou's conservatism last year? We pressed, had a higher XG than Spurs, according to at Ghost Goal, but our defence struggled without compact midfield to cover it. Well, Matic played. I don't know what a 3 in midfield is if it's not a compact midfield. He's played 3 at the back, 5 at the back, basically, and 3 in front. Seemed that was a reaction.
Yeah, I don't think that game justified any of Mourinho's conservatism last year, because I'm not sure that inherently conservatism is the best way to minimise the number of chances your opponent gets.
Yeah, that's right. And I think this is one of the reasons, sorry to get into some Mourinho bashing momentarily.
No, you're not. I'm
not sure that Mourinho can turn the ship around. I think football's different than it was 15 years ago when he first came around. Now, look, we might go back to a second age of Catenaccio at some point, but right now, that's not how the best teams play. And Mourinho is entirely a reactive coach, both on and off the field, and it feels like the age has passed him by, much as it had for Arsene Wenger, who reinvented football in many ways in England, and then couldn't cope when a whole bunch of new teams and new money came along. I don't know that Mourinho can reinvent himself. I'm certain he can't. And I feel like he probably needs to. Anyway, at MUFC_Hague says, what would change by axing Mourinho versus axing the ducking board of banks? He does say ducking.
This is a great question. I think the thing that could potentially change if you axe Mourinho and get the right manager in, and I'm not in some mad rush for this, by the way, because I just think bringing a new manager in August after the transfer window closes is just a bit dumb in a lot of ways. But what a new manager could potentially provide is some fresh tactical ideas and some flipping confidence for the players, because this is the thing that's shockingly missing. Is just players performing anything like the best of themselves? I mean, the board question is a much broader question. And, there's Love United, hate Glazer talk. And there is a bit of a problem in that that's re-emerged now when things are bad. But I think it's also appropriate because things are bad. Because like I said last week, structure in. Not Mourinho out, structure in. We need a sense that we're going somewhere as a club.
There was a clarification briefed out by Woodward about the director of football in that looks like they're going to appoint a technical director. Difference being they are not giving too much power to this director of football. He'll be one of a committee. And, if and when this person comes in, i.e. read between the lines, Woodward is not prepared to give away his power.
I mean,
he's had a taste and he likes it.
The better spin on that, I guess the more positive spin on that is he's not prepared to completely rule out managerial involvement either in transfers. But once you start to have a panel, you start to have politics. It's not like this is not even a director of football coming in who had autonomy. It's not a silver bullet, It's a complicated mesh of mess.
Yeah, I just hope for some kind of strategy. We've identified a problem. The original Woodward briefing was actually sound if that's the strategy they're actually deploying. We want a consistent style, and I presume that means from the under 18s upwards. We want a vision for what our club stands for. We want an identity, and we want someone who can help us deliver that, whatever manager is in charge. And the sense that there are 3 or 4 year cycles of managers, and you plan for those 3 or 4 year cycles, but you plan beyond the 3 or 4 year cycle in your transfer strategy, because you're buying 22, 23, 24, 25-year-olds, that makes a lot of sense. Getting some guy in who's a buffer between Woodward and Mourinho because Mourinho's putting pressure on Woodward and Woo-Wah doesn't like it much. Not so likey.
No.
At BRD Dale says, is it a time for a return of the Green Goal campaign? Coming back to your previous point. No, I don't think there was a time for it to ever go away because the problem with the Glazers is that they put commerce and profits and they are taking dividends and management fees and big chunks out and there's still £350 million worth of debt on the books. They put that before all of the stuff we just talked about. So for the business model to work fine, a top 4 finish and a decent run in the Champions League is fine. They're going to keep coining it in. The sponsors will be happy because of the brand reach, and they never really need to win a trophy again.
The whole kind of the relationship between the Green and Gold campaign and success on the pitch is really an interesting one. My friend of the show, Cal Gildart, sent me a long message, which I thought was really interesting, where he was talking about how when the Green and Gold campaign was at its peak, United were still in the Champions League that season. They were competing for the league title, which they ended up losing, but very, very narrowly, and could easily have won the league that season. And the biggest single protest of any game came in a 4-0 win. So it's... Sorry, what were you going to say, Ed?
No, I was just going to say, I mean, that's right. It wasn't stimulated by necessarily lack of transfers or a lack of success. Actually, the thing that really stimulated the Green Gold campaign to start with was the prospectus for the first bond issue.
Yeah.
Which was extremely dull, but basically laid out in very stark terms exactly how much money United owed and were likely to be repaying to the end of eternity.
Yeah, and that's, of course, before the last massive rise in television rights, which of course saved everyone. You know, it made the Premier League the richest league in the world by miles, and United have continued to kind of put their boot down on the throat of the competition in terms of commercial deals also. So, you know, the thing that was feared from that prospectus didn't come, and the Green and Gold campaign had some specific success in the sense that there was a dividend issue that didn't go out. They didn't issue dividends because they were worried about the optics of it and, you know, all these kind of things. But, you know, it's really interesting at this point to make this about the Glazers, because the problem here isn't, and the problem this summer was not that United were not prepared to spend money because the Glazers wanted to take it all out of the club in profit. I mean, they want to profiteer off the club, but they haven't spent a fortune, but the club have spent a fortune on players in the last few years, and they signed Alexis Sanchez as the kind of, he's got to be in the top 5 best players in the world. They signed him in January. Like, this is that they're spending money. They just didn't want to back Mourinho, and by they I just mean Ed Woodward, basically. So
right. As I said, he's got a taste for it and he loves it. Power corrupts. And look, and it's a nuanced debate, clearly, and Twitter is not a space for a nuanced debate. But obviously, even when you've got 280 characters and can thread responses now, so you can write an essay if you want.
But your answer that it should never have stopped is right. There should never be a time when United fans aren't protesting about the Glazer ownership. But of course, we all get complacent when one of two things happen. One, when the club wins trophies, people stop campaigning, and especially when the club spends money on players because people are so obsessed.
And it's presented as a victory. You know, I'm surprised they don't have an open top bus parade.
Yeah.
You know, for the new player, but they were basically as good as do that, you know, through various social channels and so on.
Like
at Rodney_Cyrus says, is there a real alternative to Jose? I've seen this argument a lot. Oh, there's no alternative. What, you're telling me in the world of football that there are no possible good coaches out there? I mean, you know, there's one who's just won 3 European Cups in a row. Now, who is apparently the favourite? Should Mourinho go, and apparently has let it be known that he'd be interested in the job. He's not without caveats. You know, I know you'd love him. He's not without caveats because he would be inheriting a squad not nearly as talented as that one, or specifically one that doesn't contain Ronaldo, you know, which is basically cheat mode, isn't it?
Yeah.
And so we don't know really how good he is in those circumstances. I would hasten to have a guess that he might get a bit more out of our collection of forwards. He might get a bit more out of Alexis. He might use Martial. Alexis, by the way, we didn't talk about earlier. What a turd of a signing he's turning into.
Honestly, anyway. As I said in the WhatsApp, like the Mkhitaryan Alexis swap deal genuinely made both teams worse, which is impressive. Mkhitaryan's definitely made Arsenal worse, and Sanchez has definitely made us worse. He's
ruined two. Rashford's not getting a look in, and Martial's binned off to the reserves. Anyway, the question was about alternatives. So, Zidane's one. Who are the others?
Well, I think this is an interesting question, and it's something that came up a lot after Ferguson went, when everyone was basically saying it's either Moyes or Mourinho. So, do you want Mourinho? Well, if not, then you've got to have Moyes. And my argument at the time was always that seems completely ridiculous, because there are an almost infinite number of options. I mean, I'm not saying we should do this, but you could give Michael Carrick the job. You give Michael Carrick a go in the job and see what happens. I don't think that's a particularly good strategy by any means, but there are many options available.
There are, yeah. Which brings me to the next question, I suppose. At Nick Gilbert 86 says, is it time to bring back the Moisea? He's out of work.
Moyes in.
All right, plenty of questions. One little one from... he won't hear this because, obviously I'm going to have to reply to him in a different media. At Gresham123 says, where do I listen to the podcast? Well, thank you, Jamie. You listen to it on iTunes, which is where most of the listeners here will be listening to it, or on Stitcher, or on Acast, or in the website, on the browser, or anywhere where you get podcasts.
Yeah, I just changed podcast app on my phone. I switched from Beyond Pod. So Beyond Pod's got all buggy, and they've removed Android Auto support from it, and I've switched to Pocket Casts. Pocket Casts, which is a really nice app. Really nice app.
Very nice. Of course, if you're on one of those platforms, or especially iTunes, you could, if you are Mourinho out, leave us a 5-star review. If you are Mourinho in, leave us a glowing written review. How about that? just as a scientific test.
Can we have it the other way around? Because I think the written interviews are worth more, and I think that's presumably there are more people who are leaning towards Jose. Let's say, as to use the club's language, preparing for life after Mourinho. That's how I feel, by the way. That's legitimately how I feel. I'm not Mourinho out, pitchforks and plane banners. I'm just preparing for life after Mourinho.
Yeah. It's just when that life will come.
Yeah.
And how quick it comes is the question. Are we prepared for life next week against Burnley?
Life with Sean Dyche. Sean Dyche might be a better Man United manager than Jose Mourinho.
Oh, God. No. This is like when you said Allardyce is going to be a great manager for England.
No, I didn't say he was going to be a great manager for England. I said he would maximise... this was before I knew of Gareth Southgate's glorious cultural revolution and all its possibilities. I said that Allardyce would maximise England's limited abilities and get to a quarter-final. I wasn't even dreaming about a semi-final at that point. Anyway, Pardew in. No, the Curbs in.
Is he still alive?
Yeah, I believe so. I don't know.
He's interviewed for every single manager's job anywhere in the football pyramid for the last 10 years and not got one.
He says he turned down a few opportunities when he was first out of work, and that's really cost him because he's never been able to get back in. Burnley, they're not having a very good season. They've got the Europa League blues, haven't they? Big time.
They really have, yeah. And they're not out yet, are they? But they lost away at Olympiacos last week, and they drew with Southampton, lost to Watford, and lost to Fulham. Yeah, and they got sort of tonked by Fulham, didn't they? That 3-1 loss to Watford at home came on the back of, and they've got a trip. They've got a visit from Olympiacos 3 days before their game against us. So maybe they'll still be sort of tired and sad, and will be able to scrape a 1-0 win past the disadvantaged Burnley. Listen, I can't think of anything to say about Burnley that isn't ridiculously predictable. So Dyche has them defending deeper than any Premier League team's ever defended. They give up insane numbers of shots, but they back their keepers and defenders to get enough blocks and saves to make it worthwhile. The fact that Joe Hart is their keeper at the moment is probably a bit of a problem in that regard. Joe Hart comes in as keeper and they start shipping goals. shocking development there. We've conceded 6 goals in 2 games. Oh dear. And every single one of them from a defensive mistake as well. Every last one. We should have given away a penalty as well in that Tottenham game. That Phil Jones tackle on, maybe it was Mora, was nailed on pen. If they'd done a little TV gesture and gone and looked at the pictures, that'd have been Penno Central. Yeah, I think the pundits' reaction to that is, it's man-to-man, it's just a little physical contact. The VAR would have been pen, I'm sure. Definitely. Yeah. They're having a tough time. It's not like they made a whole bunch of changes in how they play or their personnel or their back four, Joe Hart being the odd one there. They've got Tom Heaton's out injured at the moment. Heaton was on the bench against Fulham. Nick Pope's out injured. Yeah, Nick Pope is out injured. Yeah, Nick Pope is out injured. I knew it's one of them. So they've got 3 England keepers in their ranks. Maybe they play all 3 at the same time. Joe Hart is not an England keeper anymore, please. But Ben Mee and James Tarkowski were at the back. They were excellent last season. It's not like they've made fundamental changes to upset the balance. So it is interesting that this has happened to them. I'm sure the Europa League is playing a big part in this. Yeah, I just looked it up, and Heaton started in the Europa League. Joe Hart started against Fulham and chipped 4 goals, obviously. But Heaton had started in the Europa League game before that. But it was pretty much a full strength team. In a way, you wonder whether Burnley's style wouldn't have caught up with them anyway, because you are relying on quite a lot of, if not luck, then excellent defensive performances in order to maintain conceding the kind of number of chances and quality of chances that they did and get away with it. I'm
I am not confident about this game one little bit. I think if we'd kept going in the second half yesterday, if we hadn't ended up getting absolutely pammed in the second half, then maybe I'd have thought like they can keep some positive momentum going. But I don't see anything. Maybe we scrape a 1-0 win, but
I do wonder whether that Europa League game will play a pretty significant part because, they've got to turn around a 3-1 loss.
Yeah.
Burnley don't score a lot of goals. There's a calculation to be made there because losing 3 on the trot in the Premier League right at the beginning, that might set the narrative for their season. They might go on an extended run of not picking up points.
Oh, you said their season. Because if we lose, of course, that would be us losing 3 on the trot.
Yeah, no, that's true. I mean, but like, I'm just saying, like, there's calculation of your dice at this point. Do you really play a full strength side 3 days before you play Manchester United? Obviously, one of their biggest games, but just big because of the context, and if you end up deep into the autumn and they've only got 6 or 7 points and they're in the bottom 3, the crowd get a bit testy and then they end up sacking Sean Dyche at Christmas just in time for him to take over at United.
It's perfect. It's all written in the stars. I'm be fascinating to see whether Mourinho sticks with 3 at the back. I wonder whether he did that because he thought Tottenham would line up with 3 at the back, which they didn't, of course. We thought maybe they would, but they didn't. They reverted to 4 at the back in that game, and it was obviously very effective for them. I don't think he'll play 3 at the back here. I think he'll go with the back 4, I guess, with Smalling and one other, and then play. I guess Fred keeps his place. Fred, Pogba, Matic, maybe, and then Alexis, Lukaku, someone on the right, Lingard, Mata. Mata's punishment beatings came off at half-time against Brighton and no part in the game against Tottenham. But
yeah, that sounds about right. I think he'll go with the back 4. It's Valencia, Smalling, Lindelof, and Shaw, Pogba, Matic, Fred. Alexis starts this one, it's just who on the right? Probably Lingard. He doesn't go with 2 speedy players, does he? So he's not playing Rashford and Alexis. And Martial will never play for United again because he's hoping to ship him out.
The saying Alexis on the left bums me out so much. I don't know, maybe he'll come good and this will look really stupid, but he's one of my least liked Man United players ever. It's ridiculous. Every time I see him, I just want to sigh. He's been everyone was talking about what a really good pre-season he had, and that was super exciting. So I thought, maybe we'll get some proper good Alexis, but he's just been absolutely gone. Maybe he was injured in that first game, and that's why he was playing badly, and then he came back too soon because United was struggling. So maybe he's struggling with injury and he'll come good, but can't help thinking at the moment that it's just that he's a bit bobbins now.
All right. Well, a couple of things to look forward to before Turf Moor.
Okay.
If you're of the mind that United might be getting rid of some players, we'll see whether that happens. I think Woodward's not going to let him sell the players he really wants to sell, which are Pogba and Martial.
Yep.
France, August 31st.
Okay.
Spain, September the 1st.
Okay.
Italy's done. Germany, August 31st. Probably Netherlands or Russia not going to be selling anyone to you. There's some guff in the squad. You might sell them to Turkey, August 31st.
Classic.
So, anyone going to head out?
Maybe Matteo Darmian will go to Turkey. There's a match made in heaven. Marcus Rocco.
He really wants to move back to Italy, doesn't he?
He's not going to sell Rocco.
Marcus Rocco's available. So is Darmian.
With Darmian,
so is Martial, I guess. Although Woodward seems to be digging in.
Darmian wants to go to Italy. He falls under the category of it's nice to want things, doesn't it? It's clearly no Italian club's going to pay the money that United or Heath wants at the moment. I don't know. Nobody that you really care about. Maybe Anthony Martial will go, and that'll be heartbreaking. But I think that's the only one that's a realistic possibility, apart from some deadwood in the squad. And And then United women lost to Reading in their second game in the Cup, but Reading are in the league above them. And 4,835 at Leigh Sports Village, which was, considering the attendance when they played Liverpool at Tranmere's ground, seemed to be about 15. So made some noise and, generated a bit of
I thought that was
atmosphere.
interesting because there's a few journos who got a bit sniffy about hardly anyone turning up at that Liverpool United game the other week. But 4,500's a bloody good crowd.
Yeah, it's not bad at all, is it? And United's women apparently put in, I didn't see any of this games. I don't think it was on TV at all.
No, I missed it.
But they apparently put in a real good effort, and Siobhan Chamberlain made some good saves. It'll be interesting when the league starts, because obviously that was a really tough test for them. And real good support. That's nice. I don't know what the kids have done. The kids are playing Liverpool soon, aren't they? I seem to remember you saying, Ed, the under-23s.
Mixed results for the age groups this week. United's under-23 side drew at Southampton, 1-1, and after a decent start to the season. And the under-18s spanked Stoke under-18s 5-1.
Good. That's what we like to see. All right. What do you think the score is going to be against Burnley?
2-0 to United.
I think we're going to lose 1-0.
Well, yeah. Thanks for the positivity, Paul.
Listen, I just...
if Mourinho listens to this podcast, he's going to be ruined. Fake news is what it is.
But that's the thing. He will just be like, United fans are too clever to listen to these people. And to be fair, in that case, I would defend his position to the hilt.
If you're a true United fan, you won't listen to this nonsense. So get off and listen to something better. Thank
you for listening. The Red Mancunian's back. They're only doing 1 a month shows though, but once a month you can check in with those boys, so that's good. All right, we'll be back with another one of these next week after the Burnley game. And then I think during the international break we're going to do a questions special. So thank you for listening, and see you next week.
Bye now.
As always, the Rantcast is brought to you by the kind people that choose to back us at patreon.com/rantcast. Head over there to get involved in our crowdfunding. And if you back us at a level of $5 a month plus VAT, then you'll get a little bit of extra content at the end of each show. This week, we talked about the 1991-92 season. Some of the big games against the big boys, not so good. A 0-0 draw with Liverpool at home. But basically, this was it. Fergie looked like a genius for saying we were going to win the league this season. After the Christmas period, we have a slightly mucky 1-1 draw against Leeds United, who were the kind of the fellow contenders for the league title that season. And then a young schoolboy in short trousers, 14 years old as I was at the time, about to turn 15 in the April of that year, accompanied his older best friend, who was a hardened match-going Red. So, I was allowed to go by my mum, and I went to my first ever Man United game, following Ed around, going, where do we go? Do we go here? This is a bit scary, isn't it? And being told I was not going to be beaten up, which is what I was most afraid of. But United were thoroughly beaten up.
Thoroughly beaten up. This is the famous New Year's Day after they'd been out boozing the night before, I'm alleging. No one's ever confirmed that, have they? And losing 4-1 at home. Pretty embarrassing. Allegedly. No, they definitely lost 4-1 at home.
Alleging based on Lee Sharp's face and performance.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
We interrupt this program to bring you an important Wayfair message. Wayfair's got style tips for every home. This is Styles McKenzie helping you make those rooms sing. Today's style tip. When it comes to making a statement, treat bold patterns like neutrals. Go wild, like an untamed animal print area rug under a rustic farmhouse table from Wayfair.com. Arr, fierce. This has been your Wayfair style tip to keep those interiors superior.
Wayfair, every style, every home.